So good morning, Jamie.
Good morning, Spencer.
We are here to talk to you about two great chocolates, which Jamie, who is the Square Mile coffee bar, who's about to head off for an amazing trip, which he'll maybe talk to us a little bit about, to find more great coffees for us. Talk about two great chocolates, one from Jenny Samaniego from Connections and one from Patrick and Peggy from Choco del Sol, and how you paired them to an extraordinary treat of a coffee again.
Yeah, this is a delicious one. So this coffee is called Cyato Mutango. It's coming from the Cyato washing station in Western Rwanda, and we're going to talk a lot more about it. So let's get into it.
Let's get into it, right. So we should start with having a quick sip of the, we're going to do coffee first because it is, it's a cold, wet first. Spring morning.
Oh my God, so good.
That is just amazing.
Yeah, we're starting with the filter coffee, but this is actually going to be in our shop as an espresso, but I definitely recommend anybody who gets this bag to try it as filter as well, because it is just stunning.
It has this amazing length and it's beautifully sweet, but not sort of saccharinely. It's really mellow.
Yeah, I really find that these Western Rwandan coffees like this are such a good, they're kind of like a good seasonal change coffee. Like they really have, this coffee really has an interesting acidity in the sense that you definitely get the citrus, like a blood orange kind of thing, but it's also more of like a candied citrus, like a marmalade, for me at least, in addition to some kind of like brighter tones, like a gooseberry or something like that. But then it's just like supported by this body, this heft, this length that kind of just makes the whole experience really holistic and delicious.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting because, as you say, it does have these citrus, these sort of gooseberry, these sort of quite, what I would sort of almost sort of describe as being sort of quite high, almost sort of kiki-like.
Yeah, sparkly.
Yeah, sparkly. And interestingly, you've picked to match this with a fantastic chocolate from Ecuador. Now, Ecuador, we all know, this is a gross generalization because you can't really do this for coffee or for chocolate, but we'll just try it anyhow. Ecuador tends to be a bit more green and a bit more vegetal. So this is sort of a very, very interesting pairing, which I think does work fantastically well. So there you go. And it's made by Jenny Samaniego from Connections. And one of her unique attributes is that she doesn't actually have her own facility. She makes in a larger facility, but she goes out and sources the beans and she controls every aspect of the crafting. And she in particular experiments with different roasts. So she will give you what she will call a virgin roast, or mistakenly some people refer to as a raw. So it can't be really raw because the chocolate's been fermented, and actually in the fermentation and in the roasting process, it does go above the 42 degrees. But instead of being roasted like a normal craft chocolate bar, which is, roasted in the bean, and it'll be roasted for 20, 25 minutes, somewhere between 120, 130, sometimes a little bit more, sometimes a little bit less. This is actually flash roasted. So it's known as a virgin roast. And as a consequence, you get even more of this sort of Arriba Nacional beans coming out, and they just give it this delicious green vegetal flavor, which I think actually complements what you were describing as the base layer to this.
Completely, yeah. And like, I get green, but for me, vegetal is more of sort of like a tobacco-y, off-putting note. This is lovely.
Yeah.
And it really kind of speaks to that sort of like, almost like floral herbal.
Yeah. Floral is probably a better way of describing it.
Chamomile, I think maybe elderflower is a stretch, but like going in that direction.
You're right. It's more the herbal. And in fact, I should be using it's green herbs more than anything else, but it's sort of like thyme and maybe some other sort of almost sort of grassy notes. But it's not, and it is quite floral. So you're right. You do sort of get those. But what I think happens with that, just brilliantly, is that it brings out all of that just wonderful baseline note on it. And it also, it showcases what you were describing. I think the gooseberry notes, the citrus notes, it really is one of those ones which brings out, and it brings out the creaminess of the chocolate.
Yeah, when we did the tasting, this one was like, obviously we have to do that pairing. It jumped out. We couldn't stop eating this chocolate with this coffee, so I hope you enjoy it too.
Yeah. And we're going to use this to bridge into another topic, which I think is very important for both coffee and chocolate at the moment, which is the impact of rising prices.
Yeah, it's, not as simple as you might think. Obviously, it's great that prices are going up to producers so that more people want to stay in coffee and chocolate. Of course, as roasters, hits us a little bit hard, but I think that the industry has more to gain from prices being good for producers, but also it has some kind of interesting knock-on effects, like how you were talking about with Ecuadorian cacao.
Yeah, so I think just to sort of give everybody the background here, coffee is seeing prices rise dramatically. Cocoa has too. So cocoa, 18 months, 24 months ago, was trading at about $2,500 a ton. It's now trading at around 10,000. It's been up at 12,000. Ecuadorian cacao has always had a slightly higher premium, but just as you've had in coffee, it's been a real struggle to persuade people that this backbreaking work, when it's underpaid, is something which kids and their descendants want to go into. Over the last 18 months, all these prices have risen. And the upside to it is that people are more encouraged. But there are also some major problems. So for example, just transporting the beans from the farm to the fermentation centers, or more dramatically to the ports, literally you now need armed police escorts in front of and behind the lorries which are carrying these beans, because they are literally being hijacked. And it's become incredibly dangerous for people. So we were talking earlier, the people who finance this, it's just so much more difficult now on the ground for the people who are doing this. And lots of people are sort of, for example, in Ghana, withdrawing from this line of the business where they have to buy the beans and then wait for the cash to come in, etc., because they don't want to be robbed. So there's a lot of structural issues here. Overall, it's great that people are finally starting to realize that they have to pay for the quality and just basically pay people what they need to live on, even if they're just doing the commodity end. But there are some other really interesting challenges.
Yeah, and we've had those kind of security risks with coffee for a while as well. It's just sort of the reality. But at the same time, another thing that always stands out to me, like, for example, Chris and Divine, who own the washing station Cyato that produces this coffee, they're paying for all of their cherry in cash. So when the price rises, it's not necessarily an issue for them and that they have to pay more, because they know that they're going to get more for the coffee down the line, but they have to stock so much cash at the washing station in order to pay for the cherry that they basically become a bank and have to hire private security and kind of consider risks like that in a different way.
Yeah, no, I think all these risks, this is the sort of untold story that is happening now with the pricing. So for example, at one point, one of the most valuable commodities in Madagascar was more barbed wire, literally to stop people breaking into the farms where the cocoa was being grown and just literally taking it off the trees. And so this whole issue about security for the cash, for how you transport the beans, for how you finance, it's something which we've got to start thinking through. Overall though, it's great to actually see that at all levels, the farmers will hopefully be receiving more. But we do have to make certain that they're receiving more. So just as when you buy your coffee, you have to know where the farm comes from, which is what Jamie's all about. Similarly with craft chocolate, we don't just sell you, just the best Ecuadorian beans. We actually will tell you which area they're from. So, are they from Los Rios? Are they from Manabi? This is actually from a co-op called Unokai, which I'm sure I'm mispronouncing and Jenny will get very upset. But Jenny literally goes out, works with the farmers, plans not 1 year ahead, but literally 5 years ahead. And it really is a way of guaranteeing their lifestyle and their continued commitment to cacao. So, Jamie, this is another inspired choice. And we've even got a piece of music for you to listen to as you basically try this coffee, espresso, filter, and craft chocolate experience, which is basically Rod Stewart's Sailing. And the reason for it is that the cocoa here is sailed over from Belize, which is where it comes from, to Europe in a sail ship called the Tres Hombres. So that's the first angle to do with sailing. And then the second is that the packaging here from Choco del Sol, from Patrick and Peggy, who are also keen sailors, and they're also keen bikers, so they take their Bromptons with them wherever they go, including to Belize and cycle around there. But anyhow, this packaging is inspired by, and it's true across all their lines, by their love of sailing. And they persuaded one of their friends who often goes out to the cocoa expeditions they go on, they persuaded him to basically paint a huge great sail. And different bits of this sail are then reflected on all their bars. So here you can sort of see this background, all these different colors. That is actually the sail which they've had specially painted for them. But anyway, enough of tempting you with this amazing inspirational choice. Let's talk a little bit about the espresso. Let's talk a little bit about the chocolate. What do you think works so well about this?
Well, first of all, it sounds like these people live a pretty nice life and they make a pretty beautiful bar of chocolate as well. So as we've been working together, I feel like I've really fallen in love with dark milk bars, and this is just such a great example. So Here we have a same coffee, Cyato Matango, prepared as espresso. Go ahead and take a sip.
Amazing nose.
Yeah, so lovingly prepared by our very own Ben, our wholesale trainer. And so Ben used a little bit of a higher ratio of water to espresso in this just to kind of mellow out the acidity a little bit. I think...
you get a little bit of acidity on the back, but you're absolutely right. On the up front, it's just beautifully mellow. I mean, again, you can really see the similarities. It's really worth the comparison to the filter. And Ben, thank you very much for making such an amazing treat here.
Yeah, and this is how this coffee is going to appear in Square Mile's shop as an espresso. So yeah, I love, you definitely get that kind of blood orange, pomelo, grapefruit, but like rounded out in a more sweet way. So let's try it with the chocolate.
And I think one of the interesting things about dark milk, so by a dark milk, we mean any milk which is above 50%, and this is 55%. And one of the sort of interesting things here is if you do what we always tell you to do, which is to snap the chocolate before you eat it to make sure it's been tempered. With a milk chocolate, it'll be a little bit of a less satisfactory snap, but with a good dark milk, you get the same snap as you do with a dark chocolate bar. And it's an amazing way of getting all the flavor ways that you're going to get out of a dark chocolate. A little bit more of the hug that the milk can sometimes give you. But you get all those amazing nutty, again, I think a bit of apricot to me, maybe some more of the orange that you were talking about. I mean, I definitely have a nut undercurrent.
Yeah, and there's like a sort of malic currenty thing going on as well. And I can't contain my smiles with this. Like, it's so delicious together.
Yeah. So basically, if you've been out on the water and it's been a bit rough, you know, remember, take some sailing. So try a bar, try this amazing coffee, because it'll warm you up. But it is a fantastic example. And again, just to go back to the theme we were talking about when we were trying the Ecuadorian chocolate, Patrick and Peggy have actually just been out to Belize, and they were very positive about the way that these cocoa prices have gone up, even in spite of all the risks and all the difficulties that the farmers are facing now with more theft, more financing issues, etc. Because what they were really encouraged by is the fact that the kids of some of these farmers were actually sort of really excited about the opportunity to make not just, you know, a scratch living, not to sort of scratch the surface, but to actually think about the future and think about how they can be growing cacao for future generations, regenerating the forests and the environment. And it's a huge come around because the story of cacao in Belize is not without difficulties. They've been let down frequently by big chocolate, you know, Hershey's and lots of other people. But the great thing is that now they've got craft chocolate makers committing to them for the long term, building these relationships. And it's just a great way of getting this warm hug of a chocolate for all of us.
Absolutely.
And thanks to Ben for an amazing espresso.
I know. Big up, Ben. Beautiful. Well, we really hope you enjoy this pairing. This is perfect for the season we're in. I feel like it's like, get out of that terrible winter, get into the spring, think about sailing, think about sunny flavors. So please enjoy.